The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Hopper with the American Public Health Association, and I want to welcome you all to today's webinar entitled Social Media Advocacy and the PHACT Campaign. Before we get started, I'm just going to give you a little background on how today's webinar is going to run. The formal presentation will last about 35 minutes. All of the participant lines will be muted during the presentation. Participants may ask questions during the presentation by typing them into the control bar on your screen and submitting them, and we'll try to answer questions during the presentation if possible. We will open up the presentation to audio questions at the end of the presentation, and to pose a question, you'll press the raise your hand icon on your screen. We will allow each person to state their question one at a time as time permits. And following the webinar, you will all be able to pose additional questions via email. And before I introduce our main speaker, I'm just going to give everyone just a quick overview of what is the PHACT campaign. The PHACT campaign is APHA's annual Congressional Summer Recess Grassroots Advocacy Campaign. It's an opportunity for APHA members and regional and state affiliates to engage in advocacy around APHA's priority issues for the campaign. It's also an opportunity for APHA affiliates and APHA national members to connect with each other and work on advocacy together. We have a number of tools available for folks to participate in the campaign, including a website, which includes an action kit with talking points, information, background, samples on how to use social media, much of which you'll learn more about today. And as a brief reminder, the priority issues that are being covered in the PHACT campaign this year include increasing public health funding, primarily focused on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Health Resources and Services Administration, protecting the Prevention and Public Health Fund, and also gun violence prevention. And as we get started now, I'm going to introduce our main speaker on today's webinar, Social Media Advocacy and the PHACT Campaign. Brian Hyatt has been working in online organizing and fundraising since 2006, and he's been with M&R, the firm that is working with APHA, since 2007. He's a senior strategist at M&R and also leads the online division's social media team, who are focused on leveraging social media to meet advocacy and fundraising goals. M&R is about 100 people with offices across the country who help nonprofits like APHA achieve real lasting change. They mobilize supporters and move the media, the public, and decision makers. And with that, I will turn it over to Brian Hyatt, who's going to give today's presentation. Brian, it's all yours.
Thanks, Don, and thanks for inviting me to talk with folks today. I'm really excited to spend the next hour, talking with APH affiliates and members about how they can use social media, how you can use social media to leverage the PHACT campaign. But not only that, to really apply this framework and this strategy to integrate social media into other advocacy campaigns, and just how to be better advocates on social media yourself. What I really want people to walk away with from today's webinar is, how social media can help meet the PHACT campaign goals. I believe it can, but I also want you to know that you have to approach it and use it strategically with clear goals, strategies, and tactics that are aligned with the amount of time you have to put into it. We're going to start with making the case for investing resources into social media, why integrate, and what you can expect to get out of social media for campaigns like the PHACT campaign. Sure, they're free platforms, but that doesn't make them easy or cheap to use as organizations or campaigns. You can really waste a lot of time without a solid return if you're not doing it right. So we're going to go through what developing a Facebook and Twitter strategy can look like for this campaign, and we're going to touch on some specific tactics and affiliates that members can use during August recess as well. And like Don said, we're going to end with the Q&A. As we go, don't hesitate to use the go-to control panel to ask questions. I'll do my best to get to them as I go, and we'll also open up the phone lines towards the end, and you can raise your hand at that point. So let's get started. The first reason why integrate social media with advocacy campaigns is really organizing 101. You have to meet people where they are. And oh my goodness, people are on social media. Facebook has 1.28 billion monthly active users, and Twitter has 255 million active monthly users. These aren't people who signed up for an account back when they started and never check it. They're people who are using it on a monthly basis. And the focus today is really going to be on Facebook and Twitter because that's where the most people are, and because Facebook and Twitter are also the most established channels that have an advocacy culture with them. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try things on Instagram or Pinterest or Google+, if you've got a good idea, but definitely don't focus on those. And an important note to differentiate between Facebook and Twitter a little bit too is that the audiences are different on each. We really think about Facebook as a tool to reach the masses, and the key benefit of that is that it can increase your visibility, increase your message reach, and it also does better for asks as a direct response channel in our experience, getting a guy or a gal to do a thing, which is very much what we want people to be doing through the PHACT campaign. Twitter, on the other hand, has a little bit more of a unique audience. There are more influentials on Twitter, people who are high-volume news consumers and media producers. The media and politicians themselves are on Twitter more. And it's interesting because the media uses Twitter so much, they're predisposed to write about campaigns they see on Twitter. And because the media writes about it, it makes politicians and their staff pay a little bit more attention to what they're seeing on Twitter than on Facebook. We see that anecdotally, that they tend to care about what they see on Twitter more than Facebook. Today, most of the examples are really going to be focused on Facebook because it really is the best channel for advocacy in our experience, but we're going to also end with some Twitter examples, have some as we go, and you should really know that the strategy we'll discuss applies to both channels. So social media is really about meeting people where they are. Reaching that many people is almost reason enough just to be on social media. But if you're really approaching it right and using it well, you can leverage it in more ways than just as a broadcast channel. Without social, as this graphic shows at the bottom, you know, an organization talks to an advocate. The advocate talks to a decision maker. Maybe they tell a friend. Maybe they bring a friend to a meeting. With social media, an organization talks to its advocates, and the advocates have the tools to talk directly to decision makers, to talk to their friends, to talk to their friends, to talk to their friends, and so on. And it's just a key multiplier of what we're able to do in communicating with people and our targets. The second foundational reason to integrate social media into advocacy campaigns is really just as simple as the first. By definition, being an advocate is publicly supporting something, publicly. That's key. Social media, by definition, is public. With its advent, individuals and organizations have hundreds or millions of followers, and we all have a public audience that we can speak about things we care about on. Not only that, but the proliferation of social media has really increased the opportunities to be advocates. It's made it easier and more bountiful to speak up for what we believe in. We have the tools in the palm of our hands and in our purses and our pockets and are on them pretty much 24/7. All of that's really amazing, but some real talk, social media does not replace the role of traditional organizing and campaign work. That still works best for influencing decision makers, for influencing targets. It's not likely that social media alone is going to sway somebody, but it can certainly help them make them feel more pressure if it's done well. So social media is where people are. It allows more opportunities to be an advocate, and advocates can help meet your goals. Those are pretty solid reasons to use it. But more practically, some things that you can expect to get out of social media are listed here. And really, you know, it's a much more high-touch venue than other communication channels that we have at our disposal. You can keep your supporters engaged and active in a day-to-day basis. You can complement other online or communications channels you have there. You wouldn't want to send an email to your list every day, but you certainly can post stuff to social media every day. So you're really deepening your relationship with them, and you can also hear what they're saying and interact directly with folks there. We also find that a good social media program can also increase response in other channels. So if people are following you on social media, they might not donate if you're fundraising. They might not email Congress as much through that, but it makes them more likely to do that when we email them or when we follow up in another channel. Clearly, looking at the millions or billions of people are on it, it's an excellent tool to amplify your message, reach, and your visibility, and publicly pressure or interact with your target. One of the keys to social media, too, is that you can't go from 0 to 60 on social media when you're suddenly in the news. You know, building and cultivating your supporters now means that they're ready for when they're needed. When a budget's being considered that slashes funding, or you know, the next act of gun violence, the next public health scare, if you're using social media, you can have an active and engaged base that's ready to spring into action when you really need them to. And also, applying some social media strategies to your campaigns can just make you think about things a little bit different, and they can make your campaigns a little bit more stronger and a little bit more shareable. I'll go over a quick example of that next. But first, one big caveat is that social media can only do all this amazing stuff if there's a clear role for supporters to play in your campaign. For the PHACT campaign, I certainly believe that there is, and that supporters are the advocates, and you want them to be contacting Congress to protect public health funding. So a quick example of how social can make a campaign stronger and more shareable is going to be told through Planned Parenthood. In 2010, when the Tea Partiers swept into office, Planned Parenthood knew they were in trouble. Not just their issues of women's health and women's rights, but the organization itself. They were right. Within a couple months of the new Congress coming into office, they were already under attack. And funding for Planned Parenthood took front and center as the House voted to bar them from federal funds. This is the action that Planned Parenthood launched immediately when the House voted to defund them. It's an open letter. It taps into the outrage. It taps into people's determination to not let these extremists win, and it was inherently more shareable. Without thinking through the lens of social media, so if the House had just voted on a certain piece of legislation, you know, kind of the natural ask might be to do thanks and spanks, to email your representatives and, you know, say shame on you for voting that way, or to say thank you for voting that way. Or you could move on to the Senate and say, you know, now that the bill's heading there, don't, you know, vote no on this legislation. They went a different way, and this action totally went viral, became a big part of the news story that people were reading about and seeing about in this fight. They survived the defunding fight, and a couple months later, they were still in another fight, this one about including contraception and the Affordable Care Act. How they used social media to really make a big splash in this was, here's this picture of birth control experts testifying before Congress, all of whom are men, none of whom are women. So Planned Parenthood tweeted that out. It was just, the picture was literally worth 1,000 words, but it wasn't just a picture in and of itself. The picture tied in to this action to tell Congress. We wanted people to be telling Congress to, you know, not block access to birth control. So the picture becomes part of the news story, and the action becomes part of the news story along with it. They won that fight. Ultimately, you know, 2 years later in the 2012 elections, we're one of the most successful organizations. And social media was not solely responsible for that, but it played a big role. And because of the steady drumbeat that they had, women's issues became a defining issue of the election. They were out there talking about it and holding people accountable, politicians accountable on it. The keys to their success: a clear and expansive role for advocates to play. There were all kinds of online actions that they could do. There were rallies they could attend. There was a lot of things that supporters could do to help. Planned Parenthood was relentlessly opportunistic. They moved fast with the news. They were ahead of the news and really just reacting to things as they happened. And then again, just abundant and meaningful engagements. There were all sorts of different things that advocates could do, and they asked advocates to do a lot of different things. So the Planned Parenthood example, I think, is a little bit aspirational, no doubt. They were front and center of this massive debate. They were leading the news cycle, and they had a dedicated team of social media staff. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to replicate their results, but I think you can certainly replicate their strategy. And really what it gets down to for the APHA affiliates and members is using social media to make public health tangible and connected to people. Public health is something that 100% of Americans benefit from, but it can be abstract. And social media can help break it down into actual tangible benefits, things that people see of why public health matters. We're going to transition into what that looks like now and focus on that for much of the rest of the webinar. But first, like anything else we do as campaigners, you have to have clear goals and know who your audience is for social media. At the most basic level, the social media goal of the PHACT campaign, as I understand it, is to protect public health funding by having members engage with Congress. A measurable objective that you can use within that is looking at your reach and engagement on your posts. We're gonna finish towards the end of the webinar, actually look at how to do that. So you've got your goals and your objective. You have to know who your audience is and be relevant to them. Sure, they're APH members. Sure, they're the public who cares about public health and pays attention to these issues, but they're more than that too. You want to think about what else they're into. What do they read and watch and follow online? You're an APHA is really only part of their social media life, and you've got to really try to fit in with everything else that they're seeing. Not only thinking about your audience as the APHA members and other people who are predisposed to care about public health, but also thinking about their friends and their audiences on social media. You want your content to engage those people, the second generation people. So it's an easier sell to get the people who are members, who are predisposed to like and engage your content. You want, when they share it, their friends to be liking and engaging it too. That's how you can really increase your reach on social media. So you know your goals, objectives, audience. The next step is developing a social media strategy. Questions like, what's your voice? How much should you post? What types of content should you post? For both Facebook and Twitter. We're going to go over developing a social media strategy and create a simple campaign calendar at the end of this of what it could look like. And then there's the execution piece. Any strategy has to be nimble. You need to monitor your performance, including knowing what metrics you should care about, what ones you don't need to care about, and adapting as you go. Post more of what's working and try new things for those that aren't working. So I bet that not many people on today's call have developed a social media strategy. Just the words developing a social media strategy can be a little bit intimidating. It's not something that a lot of us have done. It's only been around as we know it for 7 years. That's when Facebook opened up to the public and really revolutionized the social media game. What you need to know for developing a social media strategy for the PHACT campaign are really that there are 4 types of posts that you should be focusing on for both Twitter and Facebook. These are the types of posts that you can use to communicate with your followers there. 1, direct advocacy asks, asking people to email Congress, asking them to attend an event. These should be the bread and butter of your campaign. It's really what you want people to be doing. Photos and images, perhaps you've seen some of these on social media before. They're quite popular. Definitely be using those too. And then news articles. Social media is increasingly where people are getting their news, and you can really provide a service and keep people informed by posting relevant news articles and keeping them up to speed with what you're reading. Finally, links. It's kind of a catch-all category, but it can be content, it could be anything from BuzzFeed articles, Upworthy posts, reports from relevant agencies, things that are related to your core issues of public health, and that can really round out that whole experience. Again, the simple campaign calendar is how your strategy becomes actionable. We're going to go over a sample one at the end, and the campaign calendar, like any other communications channel, you want to plan out what you can post in advance of your campaign, and then also you need to be open to things that are coming across your radar. So ad hoc content, photos, images, links, news should be about 50% of your content versus these pre-planned things that when you want to post them as the other 50%. We're going to look a little bit more closely at each of these 4 types of posts now, and start with the core of the workout, the workhorse, the direct advocacy asks. For the PHACT campaign, the social strategy, I think, should really focus on getting members to take the online action to email their members of Congress around public health funding. It's the lowest bar ask and the one that's most likely to get the best response on social media. It can be thought of as, the first thing in the engagement ladder. You get somebody to take the online action, then you try to move them up to call Congress, write a letter to the editor, op-ed, and attend an event. For the core ask of emailing Congress, as you decide your posting frequency, which I think is probably about once a day for Facebook and three or so times a day for Twitter, you should be posting this core ask often. One post just isn't enough. Repetition is key, and it also signals to your supporters that this is what you want them and expect them to be doing. Less frequently are the posts to call Congress and write a letter to the editor or op-ed. They're a higher bar ask. And for calls, people probably aren't going to make them as much, but since the call is more valuable, if you get 100 people to email Congress, maybe if you get 10 people to call, it's just as valuable. So you want to be doing that. And then letters to the editor and op-ed, again, a higher bar ask, but it's a unique opportunity to be creative too. You can post direct asks to submit letters to the editor, but you can also use other letters to the editor or op-eds. You can post those as good content and ask people to write their own using that as a baseline example. The final advocacy ask for this campaign is to attend an event, and we're going to be going into some more details on that shortly. So the core ask, email Congress to protect public health funding. Like I said, you want to be doing that often, and you want to be doing it in different ways. This slide shows a couple different ways to do that. On the left, you see the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's post first. It's straightforward. It's a call to action. It's linking directly to their advocacy page and asking people to sign their petition so that they can deliver them to Congress. That's kind of the baseline. That's the straightforward ask. On the upper right, you see Planned Parenthood using one of these other types of posts. They're posting a news article on this one to an MSNBC article about their issues, about the fight that they're in at the moment. And instead of just posting the news article, you can see in the caption there, you see, if you agree, sign on. They're making a call to action to email Congress while they're sharing the news. And then on the bottom right, the Wildlife Conservation Society is doing something similar, where they're sharing an image of an elephant with a compelling image about their campaign, and again in the caption, we must tell Congress to stop ivory sales in the U.S. with a link. So all these really good examples of ways to keep on repeating your core ask, but using different tactics to do it each time to make it look different each time. Those examples are from Facebook, and then on Twitter, we see a couple more examples. On the upper right here, you see APHA asking supporters to contact Congress. The first tweet on the bottom, a new report came out saying that federal budget cuts are hurting public health programs, so that one was posted before the call to action. On Twitter, you have fewer characters to work with, but since it's higher touch, you can establish that issue first, that there's a problem, and then follow up with the ask to contact Congress, which the one above it does. On the bottom right, APHA again is asking people to contact Congress, and this time on Twitter, using a picture to do so. So again, it's the same ask, but it's iterated a little bit differently. And then the Planned Parenthood example on the left, again, using an image, but a different type of image, to get people to contact Congress and sign their petition there about birth control. And I think the interesting thing they do here is also they have that New York Times headline in there. So they're not linking to the news article, they're linking to the image and the petition. You can, the question, are you with bosses or with women, links to the action page. So again, on Twitter, on Facebook, different ways to keep on making that core ask. Those examples, are really all about that, getting your ask in front of people. A big part of their success beyond repetition is how the links are going to be displayed. We've probably all seen links in our newsfeed that just don't look good. There's a random image like this one of a person holding their hand up, and at worst there might be a couple lines of generic text that, say take action to contact Congress, and that's about all it says. There are 4 easy steps to make posts appear better in your Facebook page that we'll go over now. There's a URL on the bottom of the slide too that will be sent around afterwards so that you can have it at your disposal. The first step, you simply copy and paste your link into Facebook in a new post. Hit space, and it will show up with the storytelling and the art of email writing. So drop it in, hit space, and you'll see what it looks like by default. What it looks like by default isn't often very good, and one of the most important things you can be doing is optimizing that image there. On the bottom left, where you see the arrows on this slide, you can scroll through the page. It'll preload some images. Many of them aren't going to be very good. They're probably all going to be about the same size. So really what you want to do is upload an image, and it's going to make it much bigger, as you see on the right. You can make it much more inquisitive and interesting. And the size 560 by 292 pixels is good because it optimizes on mobile, it optimizes on desktop, and it really just looks bigger and better and catches people's attention when it's in the newsfeed. Third, you can edit the copy that shows up there. So on the left, you can see you can edit the headline. For the PHACT campaign, you're going to want this to be a clear call to action, something like tell Congress, protect public health funding, so that people know what it is they're clicking on. They see that call to action. The description that's highlighted on the right, you have a little bit more space, but you still want this to be pretty straightforward. And the most distinct reason why this matters and why you're asking people to do what it is you're asking them to do. The final step, once you've done that, is to delete the URL from the post, and the image and the link will stay there, and then to craft your caption, to craft your post. We will call that at the top there. We know stories are powerful, either a caption or a post itself. And this is where you can let your personality show a little bit more. You want to connect with your readers with this, and you want to have the call to action reiterated in that as well. So those are kind of the mechanics and different ways to post your primary call to action of emailing Congress to protect public health funding. The fourth direct advocacy act for the PHACT campaign is attending an event during August recess. And for Facebook, you can really use Facebook events to do this quite well. If you're logged in as an administrator of your page and you go to events, you can very easily click create a new one, and boom, there you have it. A key benefit to using Facebook events for town halls or other events is that you can keep people within Facebook. Instead of giving details in a post or driving them off of Facebook to RSVP for details, you can keep them within the channel they're already in. And you really want to try to do that whenever you can. It's not always possible, but Facebook makes it easy with events. And the key benefit is really that it uses Facebook's built-in functionality to make it easy for people who attend to interact. They can talk amongst each other. You can talk with them in the event, and you can be collecting content. You can get pictures from people. You can get quotes from people. You can coach them for the event itself. And then you also want to use the events when you're at the event on social media to be collecting content. The pictures, the quotes, the stories. Why do people care? And you can push those back out during social media, during the event on social media, like live tweeting a town hall when an APHA member is speaking about your issues, to be talking about, to be tweeting that out to your audience and tagging the member about what they're saying. And of course, for social media, taking video at town halls, at events, is just key. You never know what's going to happen. There's an example here of when a low-wage fast food worker confronted his representative about minimum wage, and just really good video showing this representative out of touch that got picked up by Think Progress, that got picked up by MSNBC and some other channels to really get the message out there more. And even just yesterday, I think 2 more examples came up of representatives during town halls being confronted by members, and video is the currency that can help those spread. If you don't have video, it might as well not have happened. So those are the core advocacy asks there. A lot of asking people to email Congress, less of asking people to call or write a letter to the editor, and then using Facebook events for town halls or other questions. The second type of content to be posting are photos and images. They really rule the day on social media and should be a core part of the content strategy. Remember, even though it's not an advocacy ask like we just looked at, you can use it like WCS and like APH did to include a call to action to contact Congress or to do whatever it is you want people to do. Even if you don't have an advocacy ask with it, you should also be asking people to comment on the picture, to share the picture, so that you're always asking people to do stuff. A couple other types of popular images you see are, compelling facts. A lot of images go around. Some, infographics are kind of high bar, very involved projects, but you can also just use simple images that have a data point on it, that have a fact on it, and create something like that to get your message out there. And then quote images are kind of another category of things that you see people posting. These would be, somebody influential said something, so let's get that out there. Fourth, you can also think about being edgy in images. It can be a good way to really reach beyond your base there. You can latch onto memes and create those that are a little bit funny, a little bit humorous, and might get shared around a little bit more. Or you can be a little bit more edgy and, like, what would it look like if an outbreak hit America? How quickly would something like measles or, Ebola spread? You can also use established memes and established things on social media. So, on Throwback Thursday, you could use historic photos of unsanitary conditions leading to public health catastrophes or something like that to latch on to what people are talking about. And there are free tools to create images for social media. There are a lot of really good images already out there that you should just see and reshare. But if you want to create something new, you can use PowerPoint, you can use pinwords.com or pixlr.com. Some of the most successful images on social media are not created by a formally trained designer. They're put together quick and put out in the world saying what needs to be said. Quick examples here of Planned Parenthood, again, doing some of these basic images. On the upper left, you see the fact-based, data-based one. On the upper right, you see kind of the meme one that's a little bit funny, a little bit quirky, hearkening, they're taking us back to the back in time. And then on the bottom, you see two different iterations of the quote image. One doesn't include a picture of Cecile's quote. One includes a picture of Hillary's quote. We don't see consistent data that an image does better than one without an image. But, really pretty simple ways here to get content, to create images that don't need to be too heavily designed. I get asked all the time, what makes a good image? How can we make it go viral? It's actually incredibly hard to predict which image is going to perform best for you. And here, there are three different Planned Parenthood examples that they launched right after the Supreme Court Hobby Lobby decision. There's A, on the left, this I Love Lucy theme, again, about going back in time. There's B, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and a more simple call to action. And then there's C, of the entire Supreme Court. And I want people just, like, for a split second to take a guess at which one performed best. Version B did. And you can't necessarily predict that it was going to beforehand. There are a lot of factors at play about what makes an image good, and what was key for this one of Ruth Bader Ginsburg performing the best is that she became part of the story. Her dissent became something that people were talking about. She had some memes sprouting up around her, so people were seeing it and interacting with it. And then at the same time, it has less copy than the rest. In retrospect, we probably didn't need to say that the court just ruled against women. When people saw the Planned Parenthood image, the picture of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they knew what was happening. We didn't have to tell that to them. It was just a little bit simpler. A couple more examples of what makes a good image. Along the top of this, we have two different Leukemia and Lymphoma Society ads to contact Congress, and at the bottom we have two different Smithsonian ads. The surprise here is that the kid and the cat did not perform better than the picture of the Capitol and the Civil War building, or the Civil War arc. And it's kind of surprising because, cute kids and cats, like that's what people are supposed to like. That's what they're supposed to want to click on. You would think that, but then you're not thinking about the audience. The audience of these ads are, fans of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Office of Public Policy and fans of the Smithsonian Institution. With that said, it's not as surprising that the Capitol and the Civil War stuff won. So really, I think the key thing to think about from these last two slides is, to know your audience when you're thinking about what kind of images would be good to share, and to try different things and see what actually works best for that audience. So the final pieces to round out a social media strategy, just going over these quickly, news, it's especially important to share on Twitter since it's high volume and populated by people who consume more news, be they reporters, be they kind of insiders who really pay attention to the core issues more. But even on Facebook, providing a service to people, being timely, reacting to the news is a must for social media. And then links, like we talked about, these can be substantive reports, they can be videos, they can be Huffington Post articles, BuzzFeed, just about anything that's related to your issues, and can kind of round out the social experience that people are seeing. So that's really it. As far as social media strategy goes, direct advocacy asks, photos and images, news, and links. Think about those four things when you're thinking about what to post and how you can really make the most of it. To take it to the next level, I want to do two quick slides on Facebook ads. This is because only a small percentage of your fans are going to see your posts. Part of this is due to the fact that people aren't on social media 24/7. They might miss what you post. And part of it is due to Facebook's algorithm. There's so much content on social media that even if they are on, they might not see what you're posting. At the most basic level, even for as little as $50, you can get more reach on Facebook by promoting your ads. One key thing, if you are going to promote something, is that it can't have more than 20% text. You see the picture of President Obama on the right there, and there's a Facebook tool it's linked to at the bottom, but basically you create a grid over your image. It has 20 squares on it, and if more than 5 of them have text in it, then Facebook will not allow you to run that as an ad. Something to think about for images if you might want to be boosting them. Ridiculously easy to boost them and get more impressions. When you're logged in, you see this button that says Boost Post. You click it, and a window pops up that says how much do you want to spend, and it says about the estimated people you'll reach. So this is for one of M&R's posts, and here for $40, getting 33 more hundred. At least 3,000 more eyeballs on something. Pretty good for that amount of money. Next, want to just touch briefly on how to monitor social media performance. Facebook makes it really easy. Insights is the name of their built-in analytics, and anyone who administers a page has access to it. It's really easy to use. Just click on Insights when you're logged in to your affiliate page. The first screen you'll see is this dashboard. And it really gives you just about everything you need at a very high level. It's a view of your page likes, how many people are liking your page, and then your reach and your engagement. So you can see the trends here. And like we said, you want them to be going up as the campaign progresses. That's how you can really measure if your social media strategy is working. Are you reaching more people? Are you engaging more people? If you click on the Posts button from within Insights, then you see that one of the first things you see is total reach. That's how many people saw your post, and it can be influenced by a number of different things. This one that 5,000 people saw is significantly higher than a lot of other posts on this, and it could be that somebody who has a lot of followers or an organization that has a lot of followers shared what we did, and it can artificially, not artificially, but it can increase the reach in ways that we can't really control. So the things that you really can control are more of the engagement metrics, the column over here. These are the likes, the comments, and the shares or clicks on your posts. So you want to be looking at this at the same time you're looking at total reach to see how it's resonating with people. You want to know that the comments and the shares are better than likes and clicks, because when people comment or people share, there's more prominence in their friends' newsfeed. They see it appear as if it's in their newsfeed, and it's something that's going to reach more people. So that was just a quick overview of ads and reporting, and kind of wrapping up the Facebook strategy, direct response, direct advocacy asks, images, news, and links. You want to be doing that for Facebook. You want to be doing that for Twitter as well. Twitter has a couple things you can do additionally beyond that, just because of its unique audiences. Since the media is on it, you can be doing media outreach. You can be sending press officials and journalists, media releases, posting relevant stories to them, asking them to write about what it is that you're doing. You can also tag the members of Congress and ask them questions. Try to get a response from them. On Facebook, it's a lot easier to ignore comments and direct interaction because it is such a higher volume medium. The masses are on it. On Twitter, every once in a while, you can get a response and engage with people there. And then also you can be asking influentials with large followings. You can target them, ask them to retweet your issues, and get your actions in front of more people. And then, of course, on Twitter, you can really use it. Follow the hashtags, follow other organizations, and you can be using it to collect content that then you can feed back into Facebook. Since there's so much more content on Twitter, it's really good to identify what might do well for Facebook. At the bottom of this slide, too, there's a link of a list where all the members of Congress Twitter handles are listed there so that you can reference that. A couple quick examples here. Ask Me on the left, tweeting at Mark Ruffalo, asking him to share a link to their site. He's a famous actor who's sympathetic to labor issues, and sure enough, he did retweet their post. And the benefit of this is that Mark Ruffalo has 929,000 fans. Ask Me has 19,000. So they, increased their reach by 910,000 people by getting this one tweet. And then some APHA examples on the left of things that you would do on Facebook that you might not do on, things that you would do on Twitter that you might not do on Facebook are, retweeting the Surgeon General about a webinar or a live stream for an event that was happening at 10 a.m. during the day. With Twitter being more involved, more active people, it's more likely that they would tune into this during the course of the day. And then below it, you see APHA reporting out to their Twitter followers about what happened during that meeting so that they didn't have to be on it to get the analysis from APHA about what happened. And then the last example from last week, I think, is just a good example of thinking about, how do you fit into to the things that other people are saying. The MH17 tragedy was a big issue, not only in the news, but especially in the public health community. And being out there talking about it in a very respectful way is totally appropriate for Twitter. So wrapping up, excuse me, I want to just kind of go through what a sample media strategy can look like for the PHACT campaign. Again, our goal, protect public health funding by engaging Congress, and our objective, increase Facebook reach and engagement. So the calendar starts on this slide, ends on the next slide. It doesn't include the ad hoc news, links, and images. The stuff that you're seeing that should be posted as well. These are really just the things that you can post, that you know the dates you can post in advance. So what this calendar does is really use August 20th as a hypothetical town hall so you can see what a 2-week campaign might look like. This first week is really about getting your base ask out there, Email, posting a link like we looked at to email Congress about the action, and creating a Facebook event for the town hall. A couple days later, we're still making the ask to email Congress, but this time we're doing it through an image share as opposed to just a straight petition link so that it looks different and might speak to people a little bit differently. After we've got that low baseline ask out a couple times, then it makes sense to move people up a little bit. They've seen the content. They know that it's an important campaign. You can ask them to RSVP for the town hall meeting. Keep on escalating it with, the letter to the editor and the op-ed as it gets closer. And then again, on the 16th, we have here, an image share asking to RSVP for the town hall. So like with the email Congress action, making the same ask that we recently made through a different channel, through a different tactic. The second week of the campaign then is really, increasing urgency, last chance to RSVP for the town hall, some news-driven asks in there with the link to email Congress so that they're seeing it in the news. And then on the day itself, multiple posts for the town hall. You can do one last chance for people to attend. You can ask people who couldn't attend to email their rep during it. You should be live tweeting the town hall when APHA members speak, tagging members, letting folks know what the questions were, what the members' answers were, and then, of course, posting images and quotes from the people who attended the town hall on Facebook and Twitter. Afterwards, you want to report out about why the town hall mattered and, really keep the pressure on. But you don't want to just do that. You want to keep engaging people. You want to, this is where we slotted in, you could ask them to make a call. So if you couldn't attend the town hall, pick up the phone. The members just heard from us yesterday. Pick up the phone and keep the momentum going. That's a pretty simple look at how a social media strategy can come together over the course of a 2-week campaign. After the campaign, of course, you want to look at the results, document what worked and what didn't, and you need to continue providing content and being opportunistic and keeping the posting schedule going despite, the urgency of the town hall happening at the time. So that's about it. I think we're about ready to go to the Q&A section. I hope people can really see the potential for social media to help APHA affiliates meet the PHACT campaign goals, and really know what you want and need supporters to do so that you can develop a simple strategy, a simple calendar during August recess and for future campaigns to really experiment with using social media to contact Congress and protect public health funding. We've got about 10 minutes left for questions. Let me go through some of the written ones here real quick and see if any are good for the call right now. One good question here. Can you comment on copyright infringement when creating images for campaign use? Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but you can use Wikimedia Creative Commons to find images, and you can find some images from other sources. And really, it's about you of course have to find something that you can use and something that will pass legal muster. But really, if you're not creating the image, if you're sharing the image, and again, this is not legal advice, but what people use social media for, is sharing something that somebody else created as well to do that. And good question, too, if we're using analytic data for Twitter posts. I had a note but glanced over it when we were talking there. Twitter reporting is a little bit more advanced than Facebook reporting. There are a number of third-party tools you can use. But I think for this campaign, really, I would go on the simple side and be looking at, how many people are retweeting your tweets, how many people are favoriting your tweets to get a sense of what type of tweets perform best. Since Twitter is a more high-volume channel, you can throw stuff at the wall, strategically throw stuff against the wall a little bit more and see what's working there. Let's see. Yeah, I think those are most of the written questions. There are a couple more in here that I think lend themselves better to the FAQ that we'll write up afterwards. I see one more to address before we open the phone lines. I think if folks want to click the raise your hand icon now, if you have a question, then the moderator can unmute your phones for that. But as folks are doing that, is there a time of day and week that is best for Twitter and Facebook? Probably, but it's probably not the same for everybody. In the Insights tool, you can see how each post performed and when they were posted, so you can kind of monitor that. I've heard anecdotally from Upworthy, if folks are familiar with them, one of the big powerhouses of social media, that that Saturday at noon is when they get the most Saturday at noon Eastern time is when they get the most interaction on their posts. And because they have such a big audience, that's probably representative of a lot of organizations. But, you know, APHA could be a little bit different. If you have people at their offices paying attention to this stuff during the day, you might find that, you know, Monday or Tuesday or some other time at noon is a little bit better. But, you know, there's not a hard and fast rule, and it's really about monitoring your reach, monitoring your engagement, and seeing if a trend tends to develop over time. And then there was one question too about how to change the image size to be best for Facebook. And in the slides where we were talking about that, there's a link at the bottom, and then here in the M&R social media resources on our labs, on our blog, you can go there, and there are a couple of posts I can think of off the top of head that go through those questions. So, Lily, do we have any phone lines to open up? No?
Brian, we don't at this time. We do have
okay,
a
if anybody has...
pardon me, we have a written question. How should we handle negative feedback or opposing posts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we typically don't advise our clients to go tit for tat with what people are saying. It can be hard to sit on your hands. But what we find is that often somebody within the community, somebody will step in and say pretty much what we would have said as an organization, and it makes it much more powerful for that to come from the community than to come from the organization. So, like, there are a couple ways you can approach it. One, if you have things that are just downright offensive and not respectful opposing views, you can delete those. You can ban those people from your page. That's totally fair game if people are, you know, being totally inappropriate. Second, you can go, you know, you can ask, you can engage. You want to be careful doing that because, you know, what comes to mind for me is the famous comic that people might have seen, but it's a man sitting at his computer saying, "Honey, I'll be in bed soon. Somebody said something wrong on the internet." You know, you don't really want to do that often, but there are alternate ways you can do it. You know, if you have somebody who's super involved in your campaign, you can maybe ask them to go over and comment on it. I think that's a pretty good approach too. I see one raised hand from the chat here. Lily, could you, Karen Meager has her hand raised?
Brian, I've unmuted Karen.
All right.
Karen, are you there with your question? All right, let's move to Krista Dahmer. Krista has a question. You should be unmuted. While we're waiting for them, Brian, there are several more questions in your written queue.
Okay, let me pull those up. There was one here that's when we were going over the how to edit and optimize a link of what do you mean delete the URL and post your own account. So delete the URL is just the last step of posting it. So you copy and paste the link you want to post into Facebook, hit space, and then that appends the link to your post. And when you're done, you can delete the actual URL that is in your post area where you write your post, and the link will be preserved there. And again, that's something that's answered in our blogs, in our blog question too. A good growth rate for engagement on Facebook. I don't know of an industry standard for this, and even if there was one, I think that I would say, what's most important is your own data here. So I think that, what you want to do is take a look at insights and see what your current growth rate is for engagement on Facebook and Twitter, and then as you begin trying new things, as you begin trying concerted campaigns, see what that does to it, and use that as as a baseline growth rate. And as you do it, as you apply the same strategies for other PHACT campaigns and have learned some things, see if you can't get it to inch up from there from time to time.
Brian, this is Lily, and as you wrap up your questions, if you could turn it back over to Don. He has some wrap-up comments, but he also has a few questions that have been assigned to him. And as a reminder to all of our attendees, we will be putting together a written answer to many of the questions that have been posed and making that available to all of you. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Don?
Great. Thank you, Brian. That was a great presentation. The one question that I did see was one of the participants asked about controversial issues, such as syringe exchange programs. And again, I'm not an expert on the issue. I certainly have read about it and am aware of the benefits of those programs. My suggestion would be to, kind of highlight the science that shows that these programs are effective, they're cost effective, they help to prevent disease. I think a lot of times people hear about these programs and they don't know what they really are. They only hear the opposition's misrepresentation of what the program is supposed to do, but the science is pretty clear on those programs that they do prevent disease spread and do not, in fact, lead to an uptake in drug use. So I think that's a critical thing to do, to be really use particularly when the science is there in your favor, make sure that you're highlighting the benefits of the program. So with that, I will thank all of our participants today, our panelists, Brian Hyatt, who did a wonderful job. We really hope that folks on the webinar will be able to participate in this year's PHACT campaign, whether it's through today's topic, social media, or through some of our more traditional avenues, through sending in your action alerts, working on some direct media advocacy with your local newspapers, or really engaging with your members of Congress while they're home during the congressional recess over the next 5 weeks. And please do check out the PHACT campaign website and our action kits that are all posted on the APHA website, and you can see a link to the website here on Brian's last slide. So with that, I will wrap it up. Again, we will be putting together an FAQ answering some of the questions that were submitted today, and we'll be sure to send those out to participants in today's webinar. And this webinar will be hosted on the APHA website. Once we get it posted up there, we will alert participants to the link for that, as well as you can share that with other folks in your affiliates sections and just generally the public health advocates that you work with. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to a successful campaign.
And this is Lily, your moderator. I'd like to thank you as well and encourage you to please fill out your survey that you will receive upon exiting the webinar. Thank you.